The boy accidentally injured his friend, but instead of calling for help, he pushed the injured boy into a nearby crevice. The next day, to his horror, the entire town launched a large-scale search. As the search party got closer and closer to the crevice, Anton hid behind a tree, trembling with fear. Just when it seemed he would be discovered, the police called off the search for the day due to nightfall. Anton thought he had escaped, but then the police announced they would bring in search dogs the next day. Terrified, Anton lay trembling under his blanket. Unexpectedly, fate seemed to be on his side. That night, a violent storm hit the town, and a sudden flood submerged the entire area. The disaster claimed hundreds of lives. The forest where the search was being conducted was completely destroyed, trees toppled, and the area turned into a swamp. Faced with a once-in-a-century natural disaster, the police were overwhelmed with rescue operations, and townspeople were busy rebuilding. The search for the missing boy had to be put on hold. Looking at the forest, now reduced to ruins, Anton's fear finally eased. He thought perhaps his secret would remain buried forever. But 15 years later, something happened that shattered his peace once more. As the town developed, the decayed trees in the forest were scheduled to be removed. The loggers were getting closer and closer to the crevice. It was only a matter of time before his secret was uncovered. Anton's anxiety reached its peak. What made it worse was that his current girlfriend was the missing boy's sister, and their child was due in 8 weeks. If the truth ever came out, the consequences would be devastating. Determined to erase all traces of the past, Anton returned to the site. The space within the crevice was narrow, and the decayed clothing disintegrated at the slightest touch. Luckily, he had brought a shovel to carefully scrape up what remained. But just then, a nearby logger heard the noise and began approaching. Anton fled in panic, but it was too late. The logger discovered the boy's remains. The police gathered all the townspeople at the church and revealed the forensic results. It was confirmed that the boy had suffered blunt force trauma before death. He had been murdered. Forensics also found hair on the clothing that did not belong to the boy. DNA testing identified it as belonging to a white male with curly hair, most likely the killer. Upon hearing this, Anton fell into complete despair. The boy's father demanded that every town resident undergo DNA testing, but the sheriff refused. He argued that it would be too time-consuming and expensive. Instead, he proposed storing the DNA from the hair in a database, and if the killer ever submitted a sample, they would be caught. Although the boy's father found this ridiculous, the sheriff insisted. Anton breathed a sigh of relief. So long as he never gave a DNA sample, his secret would remain safe. But the next day, his mother's friend came to see him and handed him a package. The moment Anton opened it, he broke down. Inside was the watch he had lost while fleeing the forest 15 years ago. It turned out that on the night of the incident, Anton had run into the path of a car. Driving that car was his mother's friend. Though Anton had hidden, the man saw him and assumed he was just playing around, so he paid it no mind. It wasn't until the next day, after seeing the news, that he suspected something. Still, he didn't want to believe Anton was responsible until the forensic DNA report came out. That's when he knew Anton was guilty. But he never went to the police. He had always loved Anton's mother and hoped that Anton would come forward on his own. When he didn't, he could only watch as Anton continued to live with guilt and self-torment.